Welcome to Coding with Sam. In this video, we'll learn the basics of JavaScript, as well as, in quotes, build a clock. To get started, we will have an element with an ID called clock. And we will put the word loading, ... I'm going to save that and just show you what that looks like. So it says loading. This is a really good habit to get into, where if you're going to dynamically update content, by default you should have loading in there, and then we'll update that content dynamically. I should also point out this is what's called a div element. I believe that stands for divider. It's a pretty standard element that is used a lot just to kind of put things in. The next step is to actually write some JavaScript. So we will create a script tag, kind of like the style tag. The script tag is now, we're in an HTML document. Now we have some CSS here. We have some JavaScript here. To start with the JavaScript, we're going to use a function called setInterval. And then within setInterval, we're actually going to use something called a lambda, which is an inline function. As I've been doing, there's a lot of hand waving here. If you don't understand everything, that's okay. We're getting the basics, and then we will add to it and explain more in depth later. I tell you what everything's called because if you want to go Google it and research it on your own and kind of learn a little more, that's always encouraged. So what this is doing is setInterval is every 1 second or 1,000 milliseconds, it will execute this block of code. So the block of code it's going to execute every second is lit date equals new date. There's a lot going on here, but we're just going to overlook it for now. Then we're going to do document dot get element by ID. So this document means this whole HTML document. That's how we get access to the document. And then there's a nice handy function that says get element by ID. We're going to pass the ID that we set on our div, and now we have access to that. Now what we can do is you can do another dot, and then you can do inner text equals. So now we are going to set the inner text on this element, because we are getting it, to date.getHours plus or concatenate single quotes a string with a colon, and then concatenate date.getMinutes, and you guessed it, another one, because we're making a clock, get seconds. I should point out, you may have saw I put a lowercase s there. This with lowercase s, not the same as this. It is case sensitive. All of JavaScript is case sensitive. Can make the window a little bit bigger. So we now have this code. It's going to run once a second. I'll save that. I'm going to refresh, and you'll see we have a clock. It's not a real clock. What we're actually doing We go over here, you'll see we're getting the date every second, and then we're just kind of displaying the date. So what we're really doing is we're using JavaScript and the browser to display and update the display of the seconds, minutes, and hours once a second. Hence, clock in quotes. You'll also notice it's in military time. You can see there's what's known as a bug here, where when there's a single digit, it doesn't know to put a 0, so we would need to do a lot more work. However, that's all the time we have for today. Tomorrow we will be installing Visual Studio Code, as well as having a discussion on text editors versus IDE, that's Integrated Development Environment. Thank you for watching.